Welcome back to Kintsugi Heroes, helping people tell the stories they need to share so you can find the stories that you need to hear.
What does it take to rebuild yourself after losing everything you built together? Today, I speak with Kevin Holloway, a business leader, ontological coach, and co-founder of Courageous Leaders, a venture he built alongside his wife, Mandy, over 20 years. After nearly 4 decades of partnership, Kevin was decimated with grief at the loss of Mandy. His recovery from grief has led him into deeper questions of courage, acceptance, and what it truly means to show up for yourself and others. This is a conversation about pain, about resilience, about men's mental health, community, and especially about becoming the person you want to be. Ladies and gentlemen and listeners to Kintsugi Heroes podcast, here we go again, another conversation with me, John Millam, your host, and my guest today, who is someone I'm very much looking forward to. Not only lived experience, but also a long history of sharing wisdom and teaching others in the business world. And now, Kevin Holloway, you are now sharing hard-won wisdom with men and similar groups on a more sort of relational basis, right? So welcome to Kintsugi Heroes, Kevin Holloway.
Thanks very much, John. Thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to this conversation as well.
Oh, absolutely. And, of course, the theme for today, and I rarely offer a theme up because usually it's a bit of a mystery to me as well, but I love one word for you, and it's in the title of your business, and that word is courage. Right? And I offer that, I embrace that as a theme today because, I think the world around us and us as individuals, we need to, in my thinking is we need to explore this deeply, right, to get better outcomes for ourselves, for those we love, and our communities. Kevin, what's your relationship with courage, right? It's part of your business name.
Yeah, so my wife and I started a business way back in the early 2000s, and along the way, we're a leadership business, and along the way, we renamed it as Courageous Leaders. And at the time, I had the conversation with her, said, we are challenging the universe here, so let's see where this goes. And unfortunately, one of the biggest challenges is my wife passing away 3.5 years ago. I should say, we had nearly 40 years together. We had over 20 years together in business, developing our company. We've got 2 beautiful daughters, and obviously the grief and all the rest of it is what led me down the mental health path. And seeking other people to talk with. But it's also given me a lot of learning, given me the opportunity, I should say, not a lot of learning. I've worked hard at it over the 3.5 years. Now I've looked into so many things, and in the first 6-8 months, I was overwhelmed. I just took on everything I could from everybody, and then started to slow it down a bit and really focus, and also then come back to all our work that we had done together around courage. And it's essentially one of the foundations for had been for us, and is still for me these days. And in fact, I'm just completing an updated ebook that my wife wrote 8 years ago, and it's still getting downloaded. Courage is there, and it's a cornerstone and anchor for me to use through this process that I'm going through, and it's ongoing. It's not like I'm the guru of courage now. All of a sudden, there's so much learning, and the more you learn, the more awareness you bring to it, the more you learn.
Yeah, it's a classic. I think the indication of a lot of learning is often somebody who sits there going, wow, I've got so much more learning to do, right? Whereas not a lot of learning, and Dunning-Kruger, I think, has a bit of play, right, where you sometimes don't even know what you don't know. So,
oh, absolutely, and that's one of the learnings. So, coincidentally, I got in. My wife Mandy got invited to a meeting after she had passed away. Like weeks after, and I took the meeting, and it turned out to be my introduction to ontology, the study of being.
Right.
And I've spent the last 3.5 years studying so many different facets and becoming a coach in ontology and in the ways of being, and a particular profile called the being profile. So it's about being rather than behavior.
Yeah.
So that's been a huge help to me as well.
How do you define being, right? Is it identity, or is it more? Is it identity plus the universe plus whatever, right?
Yeah, so at the core is your, whatever you want to call it, your soul, your spirit, but it's the ways of being. So I work with 31 ways of being through a profiling tool, and it addresses things like awareness, integrity, effectiveness, and it looks at moods as well and how moods play out in the primary and the secondary ways of being, things like compassion, like courage, partnership, all those sorts of things. So as I've worked through those things, I've come back, and only recently I started doing this ebook again. For some reason, I got to that space where it was okay to look back at my wife's work and her words and her work, but our building of the business together around courage, and it was quite an interesting feeling. It was like something just lifted off my shoulders again.
Wow.
So there's been a lot of that over the 3.5 years. There's been lots of bits and pieces, but this was just like, I'm actually referencing something, and I'm telling my story now.
Yeah,
because this is my story that I have to tell if I want to.
Often with grief, and it's a very if it's okay to explore that a little.
Yeah,
bit.
Please. Yeah, for sure.
Often with grief, people tell us it's a journey, it's an arc, it's a time, right?
Yeah.
And yet I have never found it that way. You're like you describe that first period of overwhelm, and now there's almost a lifting. Yeah, what do you think is the catalyst for change between one state and another?
Well, I think with all the studying that we had done and the teaching that we had done around the behavioral styles, this stepping over essentially to the other side and looking back at yourself from an internal state and being really honest with how you are with all these different fear and anxiety and so on, and understanding that you can be with like fear, for example, and still have the courage to do something.
Yeah.
So all of these 31 ways that I've stepped through in my learnings over the last 3.5 years have given me different milestones along the way. Particularly, I remember when I was doing my coaching accreditation, there were a chapter on love and forgiveness, but it was love for yourself. And it was like, wow. And then, and then forgiveness is to forgive. You don't have to forget, but forgive, because it's only hurting you,
Yeah.
And there's so much out there. We've got all these quotes that we can pull from that say exactly that. The only person that's hurting is yourself. And so these have been milestones, stepping stones along the way. And the latest one that talking about the ebook was just another one of those. It's like, I can really, and I can let go, If my business doesn't carry on, it's not the end of the world anymore, because I feel more whole. I feel more in being with all these different ways of being.
Do you mind if I ask you about your wife? What was she like?
So we did the typical, in a way, I guess, of leadership profiling tools. Myers-Briggs, MBTI.
MBTI.
And MIP, where's that going? And our values.
I'm not going to pay you anything for today, mate. I should put that up front.
I saw that in the contract anyway. No, and then we used LSI, Lifestyles Inventory, and
the circumflex.
So we had the circumflex. We've had a lot of learning and qualifications and teachings with all of those tools, and I've said to people in recent times that for 20 years I was teaching the theory, and then for the last 3.5 years I got volunteered into a practical.
Wow!
And it's like, wow. I didn't ask to be here, but I'm here, and
that's one heavy demo, mate. That is one heavy demo.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, yeah, and it's ongoing. That's one of the things that I know is that there's this curiosity and learning for the rest of my life. This is not a thing that I'll get over in 2 years or 3 years or 4 years. And in fact, I was having a conversation just a little while ago about the time. I've actually come to a realization that this is where I'm at now has taken me longer than I thought I would. And it's been 3.5 years, nearly 4 years, and I'm here, and I'm really proud of where I am.
Yeah.
But it's if I'd have gone back and said, okay, this is where I'm going to be in 3.5 years, I was no, that's too slow.
I can do better than that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But going back to your question, so my wife was had the she was extroverted, sorry, and but we had a very similar. Other than I'm more theoretical and she's more feeling in the Myers-Briggs.
So your T, she was B.
Yeah, so I'm INTP and she was ENFP.
Right.
So lots of learning, and we use that as a family because with my two daughters, we created our team and we went through all this. So we had a lot of understanding. So myself and my daughters had a lot to fall back on when my wife passed away. But she was totally outgoing, I've jokingly said along the way now, because I did a lot of the back end work as part of our business, and she was the facilitator. Now that she's gone, I can actually get a word in edgeways, and I've really loved being really pushed into the forefront, and I've just really taken to it, which just wasn't me at all.
So does that surprise you? Like it sounded like the 40-year partnership, which like for you must have been incredibly dislocating, right? You've lost your work partner as well as your life partner, and all those complementary services that she offered from a professional and a personal kind of framework. There you are standing without that. Of course, there's the grief of the process of someone passing through illness and so on. And then there's, you left without all of the things that have been you've been relying on personally to exist. How do you keep moving from that point?
Well, coming back to the being profile, that's one of the things that got me to understand how I am being with certain things, the ways of being. Now, how I'm being with partnership, how I'm being with love, how I'm being with relationship, all of those things. And I have a curious mind, and I'm really thankful that it was expanded along the way. And I chose to look and learn more about my process rather than go sit in a corner and just can't cope with it. So it's hard work. It's absolutely hard work, and half the time you're exhausted.
That choice, can you remember like that? Like, was that like literally going, I'm going to go this way, which is me reframing my life and finding a way to keep going. Was that a choice you can sort of feel now, right? Like, because the attraction of sort of sitting in that overwhelm must have been huge.
Yeah. Fortunately, I say this in inverted commas, we were with a bunch of really close friends when it happened. And it was actually in Canada. It wasn't even here. And and we'd known each other for a long time. So humor was used. We, really dark humor, and it was obviously very dark at the time. But it was an outlet. The other thing for me was that the night that it happened, I started calling people, and because we were on the other, in Canada, I've called clients, I called obviously family and so on, and that was a real cathartic way of me dealing with it. It actually helped me, and I've had over 1,000 conversations with people in exactly this, and some of it like this really deep stuff. And it's been an amazing experience for me. So I chose that. I just stepped into that, but it wasn't a conscious thought of, well, I've got to do this. It was just something that was there in my relationship, and we formed over the long period of time that we were together, that allowed me to access these ways of moving through, or moving forward with what was going on, because obviously it's a massive blow, and it's a massive blow for me to lose my partner and my business partner, but the other real hurt is watching my daughters go through their grief.
Yeah.
And that tears me apart even more. So I can handle my own stuff because it's you. But watching this over time, and hats off to them. They've worked really hard at it, and I'm really proud of them for where they've got to so far as well. But I remember we came back from Canada, and we were sitting with Mandy's sister and my two daughters, and at my daughter's place. And then I said I needed to go home to my unit to see whether I even want to be there.
Yeah.
And I was just saying this to someone the other day. I walked in, and it was like a big hug.
Oh, wow.
And I've just been so comfortable. And so many things since then have been, comforting. Another really weird story, and whether people believe this or not, is lights flashing. So, this is supposedly a sign. I've got so many stories about lights flashing, and with the same people, the 3 months different conversations, and the thing happening again and again and again.
Wow.
So I remember, because I live in Manly in Sydney, and we used to go to we had a particular bench on the beachfront, and I'd go and sit there in the evenings and just talk to Mandy, and the lights would just flash above my head. And it wouldn't be just one, because that globe wasn't working properly. It would be halfway down and then back. Wow. There's been some amazingly wonderful things that have happened to me because of the trauma that's happened in my life. I would not choose it, which is goes without saying. But one of the things that, because we also do values as part of our leadership programs, and we've done that over a period of time. Number of times. Gratitude used to be number 17 out of 24 on the list of mine.
Wow.
And it's now in the top 5.
Yeah.
And at first it shocked me. It's like, okay, why? And then you start to realize that, you are still here.
Yeah.
And you can choose to live as well as you can when your partner didn't have that opportunity. So keep coming back.
That, like they often, like it's been said that comparison is the thief of joy, but it's also the opportunity for learning, right? Who am I without my partner? And that process you've described as hard is really important. What when you say it's hard and your daughter's journey through grief is hard, are we watching courage in action? Is that what you tapped into to keep that growth happening?
Yeah, well, I think the courage, as I said, was like a foundation or anchoring point for me to move into all these other things. To look at one of the things that came out for me. So the first 2 years, I really struggled to do business. I did business, but my younger daughter, looked after my business. And she took on the responsibility of all the financial stuff. And I got to that stage, and I looked at the responsibility that I was shirking, and I said, "Well, I can't do this anymore because I'm not helping her."
No.
So all these things came along at the times that they needed to come along, fortunately.
Yeah.
And then I had the courage to say, well, I've got to take that back. I've got to do this. I've got to look after this. Take on those responsibilities. But yeah, courage is definitely for all of us, even to have those conversations. And when you hear one of your daughters say, how much more character do we have to build? And why does our mother have to die for us to learn more?
Yeah, what kind of lesson is that,
Yeah, exactly. Why do I need to keep doing that? And it's like, I can't answer. The other thing, though, that from a courage point of view, is that it's got me to the stage where I've surrendered to what I can't control. Okay, and that happened very early on, but I didn't understand it. So over time, I've understood it better. It's like, let it go. If it's something you can't control, there's nothing you can do about it. And that's happened in other relationships and conversations with other colleagues and friends and my daughters as well. It's just something you got to come back to, and it's something I choose to. So I guess. It's hard. It's hard to do the process, but it's not hard to start the process because that courage is there. Yeah.
Beyond the process, would it be fair to say, especially tapping into your experience through, and especially this last 3.5 years, would it be fair to say that because it's hard, the outcome at the end when you get it finally, like no one guarantees doing it right all the time. There isn't a one single solution for life, but when you make progress through, the reward is less misery or more joy, or like,
I don't even measure it like that. It's joy, and I'm present, and that's another one of the ways of being present with it. Then I was talking the conversation I had just before this call. We were talking about celebrating something, person going through cancer treatments, and then has got to a remission or whatever. We need to take those moments and celebrate that. Yes, the road's still going to be long and hard, and no idea of the outcome, but let's be present with what's happening right now. So the presence was one of the big things there for sure.
So being present in that moment of joy means that you are choosing that, to be happy, or to be content, or to be comfortable, or to be satisfied, fulfilled, without having to mitigate it, right? Like, just because the next moment might have another challenge, but in this moment it's only joy. Is that the answer to grief, or is that the purpose of grief?
It's probably both. Yeah. I don't know what the purpose to grief is, because it's so hard. But it's part of living. That's just part of our lives.
Yeah.
Grief in so many different ways.
We're designed that way. We're going to bump into it, right? So.
And that's another learning that I learned is, like, life is hard.
Yeah.
So let's celebrate those moments of joy and not look forward to what could go wrong next. Let it come when it comes, and deal with it then. And that comes back to the ways of being, understanding how you are being with fear, with anxiety, and vulnerability, all those sorts of moods. How I can use that as a way of actually working my way through whatever the situation is. And I've chosen along the way really to be present with my own suffering. I've sat on my own, bawled my eyes out. I've gone to intuitive masseuses and bawled my eyes out on the table, all these sorts of things, and been okay with that. And the other thing that one of the big learnings for me is that there's a lot of stuff I don't care about anymore.
Yeah.
But there's certain things that I care even much more deeply than I used to. And mental health is one of them. No, I was fortunate. I didn't have any. My daughter has anxiety, so I've seen some of it, but I didn't really understand it.
Yeah.
And that's opened my eyes to the mental health, and in particular with working with mongrels men, like I do in Manly, spending the time talking to different people, and then you also get some learnings from all these other stories along the way.
Yeah, we probably should, for the listeners, contextualise Mongrels Men, which is a local men's group rather than just a group of mongrels that are hanging around.
Yeah, it's not the New Zealand Barky gang, as some people have asked us. Yeah, so it's a men's mental health charity, and has 30 odd chapters now, and has been a really great way for me to process part of it, but it's not the only way. And I came to this. I didn't get pulled into it or anything like that. So there's the curiosity again, and the courage to step up and talk about it with other people that you don't even know initially.
We're really writing a list for men's survival to thriving, right? Which is like gratitude, curiosity, courage, of course, right? So I'll have to keep putting little ticks against some of these words. Acceptance, right, which is a powerful one there. I loved, when you bring up men's mental health. Of course, yesterday was International Men's Day, right? And you mentioned that some people might think that your attitude to the hearing from your wife or seeing signs from your wife was a certain thing, right? And we frame that that's sort of touching on the shame stigma of being outside of the understanding of what a man's supposed to be, and yet is that one of the things that just doesn't matter to you anymore, or that's changed?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've anyone that will listen to that story, I'll tell it, and I've got photos to prove these events as well. Yeah, I guess it's a way of, and initially it was warming me. Now it's just okay. Hello, Mandy. I'm glad you're still letting me know you're around. So I've got to a further stage in my grief cycle that. Along the grief cycle. And just talking about the grief cycle, one of my programs, one of my workshops is leading change, and the grief cycle is part of that, and it's done in a sort of curved graph, from left to right upwards. Yeah. And I've said to people,
from shock to acceptance,
it doesn't look like it at all.
No.
If it looks like and I grew up in South Africa, so I don't know whether spirographs were a big thing over here.
No,
that's exactly what it looked like for me. If I had to draw my experience and keep drawing it, it'll be all over the place from despair, acceptance, all of that sort of stuff.
I can remember my 10th Christmas, being excited to get the big spirograph set. See, that's interesting, isn't it? Because that nature of time. People think that everything runs along from one state to another, but of course, grief can hit you just as hard, after a number of years. What do you do in that moment? Like, because I found initially for many years it was about trying to avoid them through minimizing milestones or whatever.
Yeah, but distractions.
But now there's actually comfort in having, being able to access the memories and having that moment of connection, even if it is a bit sad or a bit.
Yeah, and I've got to the stage where their memories are warming. They're heartfelt now, not triggering anymore. There's still songs that come up from time to time. One of the things that I used to, going back to how I stayed present with the grief, was I would put on rom-coms, romantic comedies, and or Christmas ones in particular, and just bawl my eyes out for hours, on Sunday afternoon or something like that when there's no one else around. But the big part of that is staying present with it and letting it, finding ways to get these emotions moving out of your body as well. Yeah. And I still do that. Even last night I was just scrolling on TikTok, and I was some older music came up, and it was like, okay, I'll just sit with this for the minute, and that's okay. And I'm not, and this is where my vulnerability comes in. I'm not afraid to cry in front of anybody anymore. It's just, if it happens, it happens, and if you can't handle it, I can't do anything about that. Yeah.
It's such an important lesson. It's a lesson that men, I feel men should be having or embracing. I would love it to not involve the loss of their spouse, right? So how do we have that? How do we share the news that faith is belief without evidence, and it's okay to just embrace that if it serves you? Like just have a moment where somebody is communicating you if that turns your heart on, without having to worry about what someone else will think about you or whether you're getting woo-foo. So how do we lead men in? How do you turn that kind of courage on?
I guess you got to challenge. Yeah, you got to challenge the state of being for people, and only the people that are accepting of that challenge will move forward. Yeah, and I know for in some parts of my stage going through this, I failed. I've found a distraction because I didn't want to, and then I came back to that the learning and the understanding of, well, if I want to move forward, keep moving forward, I'm choosing to access this, and it's a choice thing, and it's in the right time for when it plays out for you, because you can go and hear someone talk, you can talk to somebody, but if it's not landing for you in that moment, that's okay. But if you interested in doing something about it, come back to it. If it doesn't land straight away, or if it's too hard, find your ways. I've like I said, intuitive healers, all sorts of things like that. Emotion code I use as well. All sorts of tapping. All these things I've used, and they all help me in some little space to move to that next step. So it's a personal choice, and that's a difficult one, because in our lives now, we want to be told or given the silver bullet to, okay, I don't want to feel like this. How do I do it? Give me the 5-minute video or whatever it is, and it's much harder and longer than that.
So that conditioning to have a solution handed to us, right, which is the modern society, everything from AI to pharmaceuticals, right, has set us up. So men will often, that moment of of pressure, or that sense of that embodied anxiety, that overwhelm, and our outlets are destructive. Often we can go to substances or to relationships that don't work, or we can work. We can use work as a drug. When we make a choice to move away from those and lean into that challenge, how do you do it? That's a point where you've got to go one way and not another. How do we encourage men to do that?
Yeah. So what I did initially when I was doing the overwhelm, I then weeded out the things that weren't going to serve me for what I needed at that point.
Yeah.
I joined a different men's group before I joined Mongrels, and it didn't work for me. But I understood it's a fantastic organization, but it wasn't for me. So I then was curious enough to say, okay, well, what can I do? How do I do that? The other thing for me, and it comes back to connection, is finding people that will not just be yes people to you, that will challenge you. If there's something that came up, that's something that you may not want to hear in the moment, but accepting that that's what someone else is seeing of what you're going through at that moment, and taking it on as learning. That's the really huge thing for me, is that everything that comes up for me, in the last 2.5 years now, is seen as a learning. not as a why me. But I've got people around, and I fortunately had a lot of people around me anyway from my business and a lot of sport activities and things like that. One of the people I really struggled to get my week started, and one of the guys that I played a lot of soccer with and futsal with, he was a tennis player, and he said, "Why don't we start playing tennis at 7:00 on a Monday morning?" 3.5 years later, we're still playing.
Wow.
Yeah.
So your week starts with a volley smash every week. So
yeah, absolutely. And some weeks is harder than others. More smashing than others as well. Yeah, that's right. So, and so I looked at what was out there.
Yeah.
And what would work for me. And you have to try things anyway.
Yeah.
Because you don't know until you try them. But having people like these friends around me who are just you need to have that connection. You need to find that. You may not have it initially. I was lucky to have it, but you need to reach out and find it and keep trying until it actually really does connect.
I think I'm going to add connection to the list, right? So now,
yes, absolutely. Well, that's a big one. Yeah.
No, curiosity, connection, courage, a lot of C's, and then acceptance, and gratitude. Right, so that's on this so far.
Well, I've got 31 ways of being that I can add to, and I've only given you some of them. But one of the other ones is compassion.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So when I went back and had conversations with people after my wife died that had been divorced before that, it was totally different conversations.
Oh wow! Was that because you felt something, about like the loss that they'd gone through?
Yeah.
Right. Instead of just judging the divorce. Wow.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So the conversation and that compassion with gratitude, because one of the things in my programs that I did, I had to get 5 people and have a gratitude conversation. And we had that challenge a month or so ago, but I did this in my studies as well. But I had to do a specific gratitude thing. Like, okay, so when you said this to me, this is how it made me feel, and I just want you to know that I'm really grateful for that.
Beautiful.
And I tell you what, the conversations I had leading off that just went to another level. So that brought all of those things together, but compassion and the courage to have those conversations. I had them with both of my daughters as well, and a couple of the colleagues that I'd had them with. They told me things that they probably haven't told many people, because they just built that trust, and then that helps the conversations keep going down that track.
I find that so interesting, right? Just recently I've been ruminating on how I answer the phone, and the idea of gratitude in the tone of my voice, not just the words that I say. And I've noticed people sort of taking a double look, like the old second double take, when they, they answer the phone with a low kind of, oh, hello, John, and then you go, oh, g'day, Len, like give them the gratitude tone, and they take a second look at, a second take at it, going, oh, and there's there's a lifting of the tone. It's so powerful for changing I can make a change, and that change will, without imposing it, will change others. Isn't that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, and I've gone down, well, I've always really been more of a spiritual person than a religious person. So, it's not to say one's right or not, but I talk about vibrations and the energy. And the higher your vibrations, the higher the energy that comes to you as well, from whatever aspect, whether it's work, relationships, family, whatever it is. Yeah.
What do you think vibration is? What are we emitting? What are we taking in when we're responding to that?
Well, the way that I try and make sense of it is that we are energy, and energy emits vibration. So if you can keep changing your vibration to the next level and the next level, you'll attract a similar vibration. And that comes back to compassion, all those things that help you move through. And you can look at it. It doesn't have to be looked at as a vibration or an energy. It could just be a human being. Which is what it is.
You mentioned compassion, and it's such a powerful place for a man in particular to go, right? Because it's not just empathy, is it? It's more than
that. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and absolutely. Sorry, just to interrupt there. So in my learning again, I got given the definition of empathy and compassion, and sympathy before that. So empathy is like, yes, I feel sorry for you, and then compassion is, well, I want to do something with you about it.
Yeah.
So it's not just putting yourself in their shoes. And sorry to interrupt.
No, that's absolutely it, right? So, so when we take compassion and connection and communication, so often modern society, and in particular the man box, we're like how we measure our significance by how many things we have, or and how powerful we are, how many people acknowledging us or aware of us, or how many followers we have. So now that some things don't mean much to you and some things are vitally important, where is that on your scale? How do you see that particular aspect of masculinity these days?
So for me, and I've had a number of conversations just as early as Wednesday, yesterday. It's only Thursday today. I measure. I've never had role models. I've never looked up to people, and I didn't know why until this last period, where I judge success by the humanity that it gives, rather than the material wealth or whatever it is. And I've had serious discussions with people that are putting these people up on pedestals because they're trillionaire or whatever it is. And it's like, yeah, but hang on a minute, how have they helped the workers? Yes, they've given them a job, but at what? Yeah, and there's a whole array. So for me, it's around what you give back to humanity in your success, and not after the fact. I'm talking, you got these billionaires that then give money back, and that's great, but it's after the fact. I'd like to see it happening in the moment, at the time. Share some of that extra wealth that you have with the workers, so that they can live a different life again.
It's so crazy, presupposing you've got all this wealth, and people go, well, he's a good bloke, he's giving it back. And I go, well, what if he actually shared it at the time of acquisition?
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
It's like going back and burying the bodies of all the people you killed along the way.
Yeah,
well,
that's right.
It's a good act, but it's hardly worth praising, since they wouldn't be dead unless you killed them, right? So
and that's definitely changed. I mean, I think I've been like that subconsciously up until 3.5 years ago, and then through this journey that I've been on for the last 3.5 years, that's really come to the fore. And it's I've had not heated conversations, but serious conversations with people putting people up on pedestals because of the wealth that they've generated. I'd like to see that shared better.
I love the message. Is that what your on your study of ontology and your coaching and your workshops and programs? Is that what you're doing now? Is that the message? Don't wait, right? Or something along those lines. You can be a better human, right? And that's a measure. Like, are you helping people understand that?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So I've incorporated the being profile rather than the behavioral tools into my leadership program. And it's all about conversation and connection, and responsibility and accountability for the individual. So I send out pre-reads for my workshops, and if the person doesn't read it, that's not my problem. If they choose not to do that, that's how they choose to be at the moment. And sometimes there's reasons for it, obviously. But and I will have the conversation that I'm having and drive the conversation around that topic, based on my assumption that they have done the work.
Yeah.
So
it's almost an invitation to be a grown up.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So from that, like could we decide that the challenge for men is to be more mature, right? Like we've got a society full of immature, sort of men, or
that might be the result, but it's what we choose and how we choose to get towards that goal, rather than choosing the result. I played a lot of sport in my life. I've coached, and I still coach now, and I still use that saying about focus on the process, and the result will take care of itself. So to me, that's the result, and the process of being curious about loving yourself, about being courageous. All of those things help build to get to that result. Because who defines what a mature male is? We've got everyone talking now about how males should be. Well, if we could just be humans, then that would all fall away. But how do we do that? And how do we choose to do that? How do we become more vulnerable and accept that vulnerability is a good thing, not something that we want to hide?
It's interesting. I find that when you've done enough work to be more vulnerable and connected to everybody, then you cease to judge them anyway, right? So the fact that they fall short doesn't bother you in the same way, right?
And then you don't even measure them falling short. It doesn't come into the equation at all.
You've released the attachment to being a certain way. I love that. It's interesting the way you're like renovating ourselves, right? So men choosing to work, the DIY process, right?
Yeah.
I was talking to someone. They talked about, they said, the red flags in relationships and so on. And I wondered at the time, why are we seeing red flags, right? Aren't the red flags the projection of what we don't like in ourselves?
It's the mirror. Yeah, absolutely. And we've used this in our leadership programs through the last 20 years. Anything that's happening is holding up a mirror to you. And only in the last period have I found a way to say, what am I learning from this? Not why me, or that shouldn't be happening to me, or it's your fault, or whatever. And every single thing I do now, it's like, okay, what's the lesson in this? And then look at it and that comes back to the ontological way of being rather than behaving. I can behave courageously, but that doesn't mean that I am. And the connection between that is the flow. That if you can get to that stage, it's an amazing feeling when you are in the flow. We've all been in flow in parts in so many different things. And if we can do that more, then that just makes everything easier.
Holding up a mirror, it's a really challenging metaphor for most blokes, right? Because we don't like looking at ourselves in the mirror.
Yeah.
So what's the process? How do we courageously look at that? And then what do we say to that person that we see in the mirror?
Yeah, well, so getting to look at yourself in the mirror, as a metaphor, you need to have the courage to do that in the first place, right? And you need to have the curiosity to have the awareness around what you understand or don't understand or would like to understand. Yeah. Okay, so red flag. Well, there's something that you got to change. No, there's a red flag. So there's something that and I might not be the reason for it, but it's there. So something, if I can find something in me that I can change, that'll reduce the red flag and change something else, maybe. Yeah. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. But if it does, wow, it's a much better place to be.
And if it doesn't, the learning from that is?
Well, so for me, the learning is you set your intentions. Okay. I want this relationship to work, whatever it is, all right? But at the same time, understand that there are consequences to your intentions, and you have to accept what they are, what they are when it happens. So keep working from, instead of do, be, have.
Yeah.
I do go from be, do, have.
Yeah. So to have what you want, you need to do what you need to do to have it. But most importantly, you have to be the person who can do that to have that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's very easy to do the do be, because we can mask easily. And that's what in our society we've done a lot of the time. We go to work, we put on this facade or this mask, and we work there, and we go home and we drop that and we do something differently. If we can do both of those together in a more authentic way, our lives become easier.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of the consequences may not be, but yeah.
But they're not meant to be painless, right?
No.
Consequences can be hard.
Yeah. So I set my intentions at the beginning of this year. I set intentions across all spheres of my life, and I also I do another series of podcasts, and one of them was on setting intentions and being with the consequences that come about from those intentions. So yeah.
So all the work you've done on being, and the journey that your personal journey that accompanied that, what do you think that will ultimately? What's the poster boy from someone who is living with intention and awareness of the 31 states and all that? What is the ultimate expression?
Just being effective in what you're striving for, and that's individual. It's absolutely individual. You want to strive to be whatever, then you've got to work through that process. And the other thing for me is I'm never going to get there anyway.
Yeah.
Not because I'm lazy, because it's going to change. As I become aware of something, I'm more aware of things I don't know, and then I choose to look at that, and then that opens another Pandora's box and another one, and away we go.
Your priorities cannot remain the same the more you expand your world. So
no, that's right, and things change. I found that in a very hard way. I found that out. Things change in a moment, and whatever comes, well, I need to be prepared to be able to deal with it from an internal point of view, and then it'll be easier for me to process whatever's going on and learn from it as well. And curiosity is a big one.
Yeah.
Be curious. And sometimes I think I'm too curious about things, because I don't have enough time in a day to be curious for the things that I'd like to be curious about. Yeah. I've got books lined up on Audible. I've got podcasts lined up. I haven't got to.
I call it shelf development. My shelf is highly developed, right?
Because, exactly.
Yeah, I'm lagging a couple of years behind my shelf, right? It's quite exciting to be curious, really, but it's also a daunting aspect, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
When you talked about your daughters, sort of being involved in the business and all of that, what do you now? Because attachment isn't part of the world of being, but what do you hope your family will be, right? with you coming up to the 50s?
That's a good question. I haven't really thought about that. I've just been staying in present with what I know that my family will be there forever. I have that as clear as day in my heart that'll happen. I know that they will be there for anything that I need and have been already. We I'm so grateful for the family that I have, and including Mandy. We've gone through stuff as families do, and but work through them. The conversations that the three of us have had since Mandy passed away, we never have a shallow conversation. And at times it was like, oh, come on, can we just talk about the weather or something like that? No, we're going to talk about feelings and emotions and this and that. So all I ask for is that continues, and that my daughters are successful in the way that they want to be.
Yeah. But can I ask you now, given the extraordinary sort of changes, Kevin, what do you know love as?
So firstly, I know love as loving myself and fixing the things that I want.
How do you do that for like blokes?
Well, I just looked at myself, and I didn't put down the stuff that I was successful in and things that I have been good at. I'm maybe not humble, I guess, in a way. Lots of people would see it like that. But if someone gives me a compliment these days, I will say, yes, you're right, rather than, oh, thanks, but, this I'm not good at
Anyone could have done it.
Deflecting. Yeah, that's right. So it's owning your own authenticity and trying to be true to that. And, it's not like that's, I'm at, 10 out of 10 on any of these ways of being. It's just that I know where I'm with their shortcomings in any of those. So in the love part, if there's something that I've seen a flag on, I'm then taking the time to look at that and try and work out a better way to deal with that. So it's about loving myself. It's definitely about compassion and vulnerability and just being as honest and authentic as you can be.
Wow.
Yeah.
What do you remind yourself every day to be?
I think I said this in our gratitude workshop, that I don't do it at the beginning of the day or the end of the day. I do it when it comes up.
Right.
So, and I don't remind myself enough about how hard I work on myself.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't give myself I do a lot more than I used to, but I don't give myself as much of a praise for doing the things that I'm trying to do.
Wow.
Yeah.
And is there anything you want to bring into your existence, into your being?
All of it. I'm not perfect. I want to do all of it better. Look at all of those ways of how I am being, and be a better person, to be more effective for the intentions that I want to put out or have put out. Yeah.
Beautiful. I call this. It's been amazing. Like, I love that list we've got now, which is like gratitude, acceptance, compassion, connection, curiosity. Was there any more? I'm going to go and think on all of those things. So you have really lit the burner for me and thinking on that stuff. So thank you. I call this the Conan question. Conan the Barbarian. I don't know if you remember that old movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Arnold, yeah.
I loved those books when I was young. And in the movie, he's asked, the chief is sitting there and the young warrior in front of me. He says, Conan, what is best in life? So, Kevin, what is best in life?
What is best in life? Are you asking the meaning of life? Yeah.
Well, 42.
That's what it feels like.
It's the question that we have a problem with.
What is best in life? to be able to be the person you want to be.
Yeah.
And that's in spite of challenges and whatever. I just want to be the person that I would like to see myself as. Yeah. And that encompasses all the relationships that make that up. Yeah.
I'm very grateful that you're the person you want to be so far, right? Because it's been very interesting and helpful. Thank you so much for joining us. When people out there have a challenge and they say, "Oh, I'm interested in being some of the things I heard Kevin talking about," can they talk to you?
Yeah, absolutely. All over my business website, the call to action is start a conversation. So I will have a conversation, a coffee, anytime with anyone. Obviously when it's practical. But yeah, I'd love that.
Courageous
leaders. .com.au. Yeah.
Okay,
and LinkedIn as well. It doesn't matter how you find. There's so many ways to find me out there now.
Which is fantastic. We can have a courageous conversation with Kevin. Thank you so much, mate. Kintsugi Heroes is very grateful and curious and compassionate and all of the other things, right? So thank you very much.
Thanks, John. And I'm curious as to what our next conversation is going to be.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Kintsugi Heroes. Thank you to Colin Lilly for permission to use Broken as our theme music for this series. If you enjoyed this conversation, share the podcast with a friend and let us know by leaving a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to support Kintsugi Heroes and the stories we share, head to kintsugiheroes.com.au and follow the instructions to make a tax-deductible donation. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.